Well, welcome to episode 40. I'm going to start over because I think I started too soon. Welcome to episode 46 of the M&C Communications Move the Stairs podcast. We're so glad that you're here. We're presenting this to you on Friday, August 6th. It's a nice hot day, 2021. And we're so happy you've joined us joined in on the conversation. You know, each week we share with you the brand protection strategies for your CBD business so that you can tackle some of the biggest PR issues and challenges that are out there.
And today we are talking to CBD business owners about an easy way to expand your thought leadership. But who has the time? So by the end of this episode, you will be able to spend less time, know what to focus on, and how to expand your brand protection by building your thought leadership. So lots of great information in today's episode.
Absolutely. And as always, we break this down into 3 mini conversations. First, you're going to learn about a great place to find the latest information, the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Then you're going to get strategies of how to figure out what and who to follow. And then finally, we're going to do a deep dive into what type of information to pitch or present to accelerate your thought leadership.
Yep. And if you're joining us live today, I want you to jump into the conversation by answering how much time, let us know, how much time do you spend keeping up with new trends, legislation, all of this stuff, because it's changing constantly and quickly. Let me know in the comments section. If you're joining us later on one of the many places you can find the podcast, I want you to post your questions and comments, and we love to talk about those in the next time we have a Move the Stairs conversation.
And we know how busy you are. And so our goal today is to talk to you about making it easier, getting hacks so that you can find great information that you can share that's really relevant to your clients, to your customers, and to protecting you. So there's a free downloadable one sheet as we have every week. And on this episode, our free downloadable is Supercharge, your thought leadership plan.
That's a great one.
Yeah, you need to make sure you grab that on our website at movethestairs.com, and we are ready to get started.
Okay, so we are so excited today to introduce our guest, Carrie Hinkle. So Carrie, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Sarah, Diane, thanks for having me on today.
Oh, we're so thrilled. So Carrie is the membership coordinator at U.S. Hemp Roundtable and a founder at Certified Hemp Hub. Not a challenge to say at all, Carrie. We are so glad to talk to you today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. Passionate about the hemp industry. I've been working in it for a lot of years now, and we're doing a lot of good work at the Roundtable. So I'm happy to talk more about it.
Great. And you are doing a lot of good work. And, one of the legs of M&C Brand Protection on the stool that we kind of put together so that your company is completely protected by Brand Protection PR is to know what opportunities and challenges are coming down the pike in the next 6 months. And I think the U.S. Hemp Roundtable is a great resource that synthesizes, I'm going to say that one more time.
Say that one 3 times fast.
Information that could be a great hack for CBD business owners to find out what's coming next in CBD. And they can go to hempsupporter.com or they can go to certifiedhemphub.com to get more information. So tell me, Carrie, do you think that that's a great place for them to go to really, prepare for what's coming down the pike?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to say a lot of times when it comes to the legality on all things hemp and CBD, hempsupporter.com is the best place to be a part of. We have a free newsletter that we push out at least once a week. We've already got 2 this week, so we'll have another one on Friday of just information that's going on state by state on the legality and everything that is ever changing in the hemp industry. Only a few years ago, it was illegal to sell CBD. So this stuff is actually moving pretty quickly, surprisingly, because sometimes legislation moves slow, but in hemp and CBD, it seems to move a little faster than most.
That is such a great resource for people. Carrie, I wonder if you have some stories or some examples of how members or users have used some of these resources, on a regular basis, or how they've been really effective at using these resources.
Yeah, absolutely. So my favorite one is the State Action Center. And so that has all 50 states on there. If there is not an active campaign in your state, you can click on your state and see the legislation that's going through. That's a free resource. If there is an active campaign going on, we have a campaign called My Voter Voice. And if you have the autofill, like the Google Chrome extension, all you do is click it and it'll fill in all your information and you hit submit. And that right there, you've technically helped to be a part of a lobbying campaign to help get hemp and CBD friendly legislation passed in your state. So we make it very easy for your voice to be heard within the representatives in your state.
I think that's so interesting because not only do you want to be heard, but you want to know what's going on, right? So in order to be able to position yourself as a thought leader, knowing what's going on, and also in order to be able to position your business so you're ready for what's coming down the pike, that's where you have to know. We read Hemp Industry Daily and the Brightfield Group, as well as go to your website, Carrie. Where else do you go to find out what's new and what's coming down the pike?
Yeah, so another resource I like a lot is Ministry of Hemp. They put out a lot of good information. The U.S. Hemp Authority, I would recommend subscribing to their newsletter as well. So they're the certification process that is a sister organization of ours. So anyone that wants to have more increased consumer confidence in their brand, I would recommend looking at the U.S. Hemp Authority. And then one that's kind of surprising, that's off the beaten path a little bit, is the CBD Reddit page. Surprisingly enough, there's a good conversation on brands, and you always have to take it with a grain of salt, right? But I find that there's a lot of good discussion on, I tried this product and I had this experience. And so there's kind of an informal way to kind of see what other brands are doing or what other companies may, or even the bad actors out there sometimes are discussed on that CBD Reddit page. So that was one I tried to think about that was a little, out of left field, if you will. And that's the one I would say for sure.
That's so fascinating. I'm going to go because we have an analytics software that's really, really powerful. And I know that it combs Reddit. So I'm going to make sure that we are pulling in that search because that's a fascinating little tidbit there to just get real on the ground, information about what people are saying, in real time.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, you have to, be careful and not, read it as the gospel, if you will, but it's still a place where a community can meet and gather and talk about this industry that we're in. And again, it's ever changing. And so the conversation's always moving on those discussions too on Reddit. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Man, you've got your ear to the ground.
Yeah, I try to, right?
Yeah. Good for you. So for our listeners, for our viewers, in the comments section, I want you to tell us if you've got some additional places where you get your information or you get research on what's happening in the hemp industry that we didn't talk about or that we didn't mention here. Please comment and let us know because that would be fascinating to find some of these little tidbits of, where that information is coming from and where the very best sources are. So jump into the comments section and let us know about that.
I think that's so important. And, I try to set aside a half hour a day to kind of what we call read in. When I was in news, we had to read in the morning and we read the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and USA Today, the Washington Post. And that was called reading in to see how people were looking at different stories, making sure that you knew what was going on. If you can do a half an hour a day and just dedicate that time, you are going to be so well versed. And you're going to learn so much that you didn't even know that you didn't know. But man, when it comes to thought leadership, you're going to be the one people turn to. And that's what you really want to be. So remember that we've included the free downloadable, that one sheet called Supercharge Your Thought Leadership Plan. I want you to go to movethestairs.com and download that because that's really going to help you work through that as well. And again, move the stairs. Remember, move the stairs means that you take whatever life gives you and you really look at it. You focus in on it. You don't say, if only this or if only that, and you start moving forward. You start taking the next step. And while other people are more like deer in the headlights, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened. You're moving, which opens up opportunities. And that's how you protect your brand.
If we should call it like the lemonade podcast, you making lemonade, lemons podcast. There we go. We'll just switch it up. No more move the stairs. Now we're going to squeeze lemons. So Carrie.
One more free resource I just thought about was the Let's Talk Hemp newsletter. They
Let's talk hemp.
Yeah, they do a lot of good work. I was just reading through it today, and they publish a lot of good information on there. So that some of that stuff's even like more high level than what I'm used to. So they are really true hemp industry advocates, and so that's another newsletter. That's a great one.
Oh,
I'm
man.
learning stuff here, Sarah. I didn't know, and we're going to be adding that to our.
I know. I'm like, jot, 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 jot. I'm gonna like have to play this again and write all this down, because if I'm like focusing here and focusing here, I'm gonna biff it. But those are fantastic. And you know what I'm gonna do for our listeners? I am gonna jot down all of these resources and drop them into a comment so that everybody has access to them. That's a great suggestion. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Yep.
So, Carrie, there are so many resources out there, like you've just mentioned 4 or 5 on CBD topics, from legislation, like where are we in each state, to production, to labeling and financing and more. And it's all moving so fast. You know, how do you decide what to follow, who to follow, and get the specific information you need? And I'm going to add in one more element here. How do you decide what is just kind of ear to the ground vibe information, but maybe not something that you would share, and what is really good, solid, dependable information that you might share with people who follow the roundtable?
Yeah, and given the industry we're in too, that is an interesting challenge, because there's a lot of fly-by-night CBD companies or hemp advocates that claim to want the world for hemp, but maybe don't necessarily do the work on the ground that's actually needed. Mm-hmm. And so I think some of it is just a general feel. I've dealt with some people in the hemp industry before that you can tell right off the bat that they are looking for a quick buck in the industry. And so I think verbiage, if you're working in the CBD industry and you can quickly kind of start talking high level on it, what kind of extraction processes they may be using, or what do they know full spectrum, broad spectrum, et cetera. There are just some very, very basic broad terms that you can use when talking with other these potential information sources that I think help just kind of weed out, for lack of a better term, the good guys and the bad ones. So like when you go to a networking event, for example, so I went to NOCO, right, in Denver, and that is a good example of brushing shoulders with people that you may see are actually advancing the industry forward for the betterment of everyone. And there's other ones that maybe aren't doing quite the same work. So I think just relying on the source and the frequency, what they're saying, are they making any bad claims on their website? Are they all for one certain bad product or something like that? They're just kind of things that I think it's hard to quantify, but once you spent some time in the industry, it's very easy to weed them out. So I think it may just take time sometimes too, just to know where the reputable sources are and where the ones that aren't.
Develop your red flag trigger.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it's a process of I've got burned and I'm going to learn to not do that again. But all the places I've recommended today in my almost 5 years in this industry, they've all been reputable. They've all stayed consistent, and they're here for helping hemp and the betterment of the industry for everybody.
Boy, that is really good advice. I hope everybody takes that to heart. And, you know, a minute ago, I mentioned this analytics program, this keyword search tool. So we have a really, really powerful, sophisticated one. We can deep dive in all sorts of different areas and set parameters and this, that, and the other thing. But, you know, another one that you can use is Google Alerts. I mean, you can set up a multitude of alerts. You know, the benefit to the tool that we have is that we can, like I say, deep dive, and we can say, look, I only want Colorado results, or I only want Kentucky results, or I only want US results, or, you know, whatever you're looking for, so that you don't get thousands and thousands of things a day. Because I'll tell you, just this funny quick aside, we were like, CBD, that ought to limit it. Well, Brisbane, Australia calls it their CBD, their central business district. Right. And so we were getting stuff. I'm like, why are we getting stuff from Australia? Right. So, you know, how that's how we do it. That's how we cull down and get really specific targeted, useful stories that are easy to scroll through quickly and stay on top of the very latest news. And then some of those outlets that you mentioned are the ones that we see over and over and over again coming through. And I think your point is well taken, that when you see the same very careful scientific language, the same description, the same focus on improving the industry, not my business or my product, is that a good way to feel out, is this a good source of information, and how would I use this information to share with my consumers?
Yeah, and as a business owner myself, and you guys know it as well, time, I think, can tell a lot for a business. And so if it's only been around for a few months, maybe you want to take caution when reading that material versus something that's been around for 5+ years, etc. So I think time itself can really just help weed out some of those bad actors, and the SEO results that come from it, right? So over time, these more reputable sources are going to have more links. They're going to have more people referring to the information they're sharing. And so that's another easy way, I think, to kind of rely on to get reliable information and know what you're reading. So, for example, the thing that we use state by state is called Quorum. And so if you click on that state on our hempsupporter.com website, you can see that legislation in your state. And so that's a very easy way to not get, okay, what's going on the federal level, but I'm more interested in what's happening in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll go to hempsupporter.com, state action, click on Colorado. Now, every bill that is going through the House that has any reference of hemp or CBD, you're going to know what's going on. And then if you're involved politically and you want to contact that Senate office or Congress office, it's very easy for you to do the same thing on our website. So again, the legality thing is tricky because you've got to deal with it from the federal level, but also on the state by state. And so we try to make it easy for people to do both.
I think that's great. And I think anytime that we can give tips on how, because time for a business owner, as you know, anything that we can do to give them a tip on how they can reduce the amount of time but still get the information is really, really key. That's why I say, I love what you do with the state so that I can find out exactly what's going on in my state or surrounding states and what I'm doing. And I also love the idea of I'm going to spend this amount of time a day. And so, if that newsletter comes out and I haven't hit it yet, it's okay. I'm going to hit it tomorrow, but I'm going to make sure that if I do it on a consistent basis, I'm probably going to be just all right and get through, but I'm not going to feel like I've gone down the rabbit hole. And the next thing I know, 2 hours later, I'm like, oh, geez, Louise, and I have to do this. And then you don't have time to follow up or do anything. So I think that's all really important. So I want to know what our viewers and listeners think. How do you manage the information flow so that it doesn't overwhelm you, but gets you the information when you need it? I think that's really, really important.
Well, and this is something that we talk about every week. So, not next week, but the week after in our next episode, we're going to be joined by another industry leader who has great hacks on building your CBD business, as we do all the time. And we're so grateful for people like Carrie to join us and share some of this information, share some of these insights. So if you've got questions or comments, I want you to comment in the comment section, and we'll get to those next time when we do Move the Stairs again with yet another fantastic CBD industry leader.
That's right. So topic 3 is, what type of information should you be pitching or presenting to accelerate your thought leadership?
So Carrie, you might know this. We are all former journalists. So normally our colleague Jordan is here with us, but all 3 of us come out of the journalism industry. And so just like current journalists, we are always looking for the trends. We were talking to a journalist a couple weeks ago, and she said, sometimes I'll keep pitches in my inbox because something kind of tickles my fancy. And then when I get another email from a different company, but it's kind of along the same trend, then I know if, 2 people are talking kind of about the same thing. Now I can put together a trend story. And so, that's what we look for when we're positioning our clients to be pitching just what the journalists are looking for, even before the journalists may not know to ask questions about that story. So I want you to tell us, how could people be on the lookout, or how could business owners, CBD business owners, think about a trend to be able to advance their thought leadership around a particular issue or topic or legislation even?
Yeah, and as you're saying, I had two good examples I think come to mind, or one is good and one is bad. So
Excellent.
Let's start with the bad one, and that is Delta 8 is a good example of a trend right now that we are following very closely and working with legislators all around the country on this issue, because there is somewhat similar feeling from when CBD first started, as you've got some good actors, you've got a lot of bad ones. There's no real way to know how you can trust this product, et cetera. And you've getting some horror stories too. And so with the Delta 8 issue, for example, we are working to help classify that as a recreational marijuana product in states where that's like that. So in Michigan, that we were just able to introduce legislation where that puts Delta 8 as an intoxicating product in the same classification as other intoxicating products, right? So that's kind of been an interesting development state by state, as some do raids. Some are saying this is illegal but aren't enforcing it. So that's a real touchy subject, I think, right now for our hemp industry, but it's going to be a big trend.
Carrie, it is, and it's fascinating to me. Two people in the past week that I've spoken to, when I've said, I work in the CBD industry, and they're like, oh, Delta 8. And I'm thinking, interesting that's, and that, why would I want to do CBD when I can do Delta 8 and it's legal? And it's just, so I think out there among your customers, there's a tremendous need for information, but at the same time, we're looking for the information to come out because we don't really have the information because the research is still going on as far as this goes, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that regulatory framework that we need for CBD can help alleviate some of these problems of a Delta 8, a Delta 10, 16, and whatever number else you want to throw out there, right? And so the positive thing to look forward to is HR 841 or Senate Bill 1698. And so both of those bills would create a regulatory framework for CBD to be labeled as a dietary supplement.
Right.
So now you're regulating this.
That would not have Delta 8 in it, correct? I mean, that would not include Delta 8, because I do think that the muddying of the waters, right? We're already trying to explain to people the difference between CBD and THC, and then you put Delta 8 in there, and it's a hybrid of the two in many ways for as far as the psychoactive effects. And people are like, oh, well, CBD gets you high. And it's like, okay, wait, I was just trying to go a whole different way.
Didn't we just go over this? I felt like we just went over this.
Right. Yeah. I spent several years working in a CBD shop before this role in the roundtable. And that was a very common question all the time was, what's the difference between CBD and THC? Right. And we would have customers that have consumer avoidance because of that relation with marijuana. And we worked really hard for years to say we're not getting people high with these products, and then now all of a sudden enter a new product that's exactly doing that.
That does exactly that.
Under that guise, right? So that's the problem.
Carrie, this is, and I'm going to come a little bit out of the blue, but you just mentioned that you worked in a CBD shop, behind the counter. What kinds of questions were consumers coming to you? Like, if you had the top 3 questions, what were they when people walked in the door? Big
one was, how much do I take? Or how, just no concept of when do I take it, how much. You would get the customer occasionally saying, is this going to get me high? That one was the one that you'd always kind of chuckle at. And then honestly, what product to take, right? So it was very much a relationship type of process. And so if a person's coming in with a particular ailment, how do you recommend them to take a certain specific product? And you have to shoot them straight and say that, hey, it may help, it may not, and kind of being that realistic person for them, and that guide on these new products was really valuable, because a lot of customers would buy, say, a CBD product at a grocery store and take it home and then not really know what to do with it, or how much to take, or why isn't this working for me? So there's such a complexity behind finding the right product for that customer that you could spend 20 minutes, a half hour with one customer just kind of talking through, and a lot of people would open up. I've had people cry and hug me. And
oh my gosh.
It was very much a relationship business that we were in, that people were trusting us with their health, right? So I think that experience is very unique for me, especially now working with all CBD brands across the country.
Right.
keeping my root in what I was doing it for was that person that's coming across the counter that just wants to feel a little bit better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of always the guise of what the discussion was framed around.
Now, one of the things we do is we use a calendar system, a tickler system, Carrie, so that when we think things might be coming down, new information. So, for instance, the dietary supplement, the legislation that you're talking about, is there any time frame on that where people should be checking back? Because I would think that this could be a great tactic to focus on and to call up and say, this is happening. If you're looking for a store or an owner, I'm happy to talk about what this means to my business and what this means to the industry as a whole. And that's a phenomenal opportunity to broaden your thought leadership within the media community. So can you give us do you have any feel for the timing of this?
Yeah, so we're hoping to have a hearing in September, I think, so we would be able to introduce that legislation onto the floor. We do have 30 co-sponsors right now of it. And the beautiful thing about working in HIP legislation is always bipartisan. So we have 19 Democrats and 11 Republicans that are co-sponsoring HR 841 right now. Great. And the thing that I would point to is the website is called Regulate CBD now. And so that is the website you can go to use the same voter voice.
I just want to be.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
You said, is it Regulate CBD or Regulate CBD Now?
RegulateCBDnow.com.
Now. Okay, excellent.
So,
I just want to be really
system
clear.
where you just put in your information, very basic, and it sends off a letter to your local congressperson saying, this is why we need to pass this legislation, because it's going to help small businesses, hemp farmers, consumer confidence alike. So for me, I have a hard time finding someone who is against this legislation, right? Because it helps consumer confidence so that when you go into somewhere, you know that what I'm buying is been regulated and safe, and very similar to when you go and buy a fish oil product, you know there's been some type of regulation behind it. And right now we just don't have that from the federal government. So that's why this important legislation is so critical, because then when this is regulated like a dietary supplement, you've got your big box retailers, Amazon alike, all being more willing and open to offering these products. Everyone wins.
Well, Carrie, you have been tremendously helpful today. Thank you so much. Great tips, great discussion. Carrie Hinkle with the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Phenomenal. We have to go to your website and take a look at everything you've got. That's definitely one that should be on our business owners list of things that you're going to check in that half hour you're going to spend a day, just making sure that you know what the latest is, because when you go there, you're really going to know what's going on legislatively. And that legislative issue is going to be something that you want to know so that you can protect your business, you can protect your brand, and you can position yourself as a thought leader. So thank you, Carrie. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, Diane.
You bet.
Thank you so much. So we're going to recap really briefly here. We have talked so much about the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, how to figure out what to follow, how to stem the tide of all the information coming at you so that you really make it useful. Carrie gave us such phenomenal ideas for where to go for great, accurate, shareable, useful information, and a couple of options for just keeping your ear to the ground. Maybe think about whether you share that or not, but just to keep a real close track of what's being said out there about CBD. And we also talked about what type of information to pitch or present to get ahead, to be able to position what you know, what you can share, the accurate, useful information as you develop and drive your thought leadership. And we're so grateful to Carrie Hinkle for all of that information.
Absolutely. So to briefly recap what we've talked about today, first we learned about the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Then we talked about how to know what to follow and who to follow so that you can make the best use of your time, and then what information that you can pitch or present to accelerate your thought leadership, all things that are going to help your brand protection PR.
So thank you for joining us on this week's Move the Stairs episode number 46. We're getting up there, Diane.
No.
So we are here all the time to help you with brand protection strategies and to protect your CBD business. Let us know how we can help you. You have thoughts, you have ideas, you have questions, you need some information, you want to kick around some ideas, drop us a line, let us know, and join us, please, again next time on Move the Stairs. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.